Hello and welcome back. This is ProTaleDev back with another Dungeon Architect video, and this time we're going to be looking at specifically the weapons, the combat, and kind of the dungeon aspects, what I mentioned last week. The only thing I'm going to not cover now, I've decided, is the effects. The reason is because I'm still very new to the new visual effects graph. I'm still learning, I'm still trying to edit, and I have used it and made some interesting things, but ultimately I think I'll maybe do a separate video altogether once I've learned a little bit more. With that said, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first thing that I've changed. Again, I'll look at the minor things and on the bigger things later. So first of all, I've added now a scenery sway animation. So now a lot of the grass, trees, any kind of scenery that you would expect to move now moves with a little bit of sway, and you can see it's very slight, but it does add a little bit more to the environment, makes it a little bit more alive. So it's just a slight sway with the grass and things, and it'll make a huge difference. Now onto the main thing, which is all to do with the dungeon. There was only that slight change that was outside of the stuff with the dungeon and combat and things like that. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off the testing area that I have. So this testing area is set up just so I can specifically test out combat, how attacking monsters and making sure the damages work and things like that. And we're going to choose some monsters, maybe at random. I don't want to show them all. I want to keep a lot of the abilities secret, while we're playing, maybe see them in trailers and things like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to open this up, and you can see we've got a Skullwalker right here. Very basic abilities. So if you remember, the Skullwalker essentially weakens the players. Previously would weaken the armor. Now what he does is he actually makes it so that stamina is low. It gets set to 0 every now and again, which means you can't use abilities constantly as quickly. It essentially gives a much longer cooldown. He also makes it so that your abilities require more stamina than expected, so he's quite a pain to deal with if you're fighting a bunch of monsters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play, and we're going to see how this actually works. However, we're going to do it with weapons. Now, a big change to the weapons has been to specifically alter the player's use of it. So rather than having a list of weapons that parents to the specific hand it's using, and then we have an attack, decided to completely scrap that and have it so that the weapons are swung in front of the player, almost as a separate object, and that's not connected. Other games do that. I kind of prefer it. It kind of makes it easier to judge how far the weapon goes. So if we look at the weapons, if I just go into the player right here, instead of all the stuff being on the player's body, now we've got our own weapon positions, and this will show all the different weapons and there's different types of attacks. So it'll be inside the attack, so I only have to animate the attack type and then the positions of the weapons inside. So if we were to go with something like a talon or whatever, you should be able to see it when we attack only. It won't be selected, you'll only see it selected at the bottom left, and you'll actually have to attack to be able to see the weapon. So if we quickly press play here and then start it, I have the testing area enabled, so while the testing area is enabled, it'll actually automatically detect that there's no dungeon, and so it'll automatically turn that off. Before we enter the dungeon though, I want to quickly check and see what tools I've got, because I've been testing different weapons and different combinations. So if we go in here, you can see we've got our potions and things. I'll leave them there, but I was testing out one of the last things, which is the staffs. I don't want to show that off on this, but let's see what we can show off. Let's show off the Dancing Guardian, and let's just show the basic Stalker's Talon, which is just going to be the dagger. And so let's just make sure that these are definitely selected, which they are, and let's go into the dungeon. So let's just jump off here, and immediately you can see that this guy is attacking me with a beam, which is working. I can select my weapon. You can't see the weapon, but you can, if I were to attack like this. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong weapon out, and I just attacked him with my Dancing Guardian instead. What's actually happening is this is a spade. It doesn't actually hurt you, so you can stand still and let things attack you as a shield. The Dancing Guardian essentially follows you. We've got a bunch of different things that you're going to have to figure out for yourself, but just an example, this is a secondary, and this is just the Dancing Guardian. So what happens is it essentially just follows you. You can use this to kill enemies behind you. It's very handy. And what we're going to do is we're going to activate another monster. So this time we're going to go for the Creep Spider. which we got over here somewhere. Yep, there he is. He has a different ability now, completely different. Let's activate another dancing, just so we can attack him that way. And you see once he dies, he has a bit of smoke, and at the bottom left you'll actually see his level, the name, and as well as the gold earned and the XP earned, which gets transferred after you've decided to leave the dungeon or died. Another monster I want to quickly show is this one right here, the Arc Fighter. With all these differences, there's still a couple monsters that aren't completely finished and not completely happy with, but they're pretty much close. Now the other weapon I have right here, I believe is the dagger. So if I attack, you'll see like a little bit of an effect, a little bit of area and a trail, so we can attack with that, and it's only a small area. You'll see that this Arc Fighter has a specific charge attack, so he'll do an animation, he'll quickly try and attack you, but you can dodge it. Obviously with so many things going on, it could be really, really dangerous. You can obviously dodge, attack a little bit. Of course, I'm going to use the Dancing Guardian because they have bear in mind the secondaries are always more powerful and ranged in most cases in some way. They just have way less durability, and so you got to choose your specific moments. And again, you'll be able to see his level, when he was defeated, how much gold and XP we have. This is a really fun one that I really like. You can also have multiple of them, but of course, and that increases your damage. You can also have potions which increase your damage. You can have a lot of these. Of course, I need to lower the durability of them, but essentially you can do a ton of damage with these. This is one of my more fun options. I'm just going to take a potion so that I don't die. Also, we have a new thing right here, which is in the world, when you kill a monster, there's a small chance of you either get no loot, you get crystals, or you get potentially potions that will automatically refill. So if you take some of these, it'll refill a little bit of your food, water, or hunger. Of course, there's lots of different prefabs and stuff that have been added in and altered, like these ones, the geysers, now more 3D. The other thing is that I've gone from more of a top-down camera. If we just deactivate that, we got a bunch of different things that I could show. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Whoops, that was close. And these are just all the different things that I've added. I think this will be the last one I show off. Right now there's a bunch of other monsters, but for now I'm just going to show this guy, which is kind of similar. You just gotta dodge. There's either, so what I've decided, oh, that was bad. So what I've decided to do is I've categorized them in 3 different types of monsters. The first is a support, the second is an area effect, so like an area AoE damage, and then the third one is completely attack. So just like this guy is completely an attack. This guy is more of an environmental area specific, and the Skullwalker that you saw, as well as maybe the Shaman, is a healer. Their support. Oh, another thing to quickly mention is that monsters actually attack only at a specific distance now, so you can outrun them. Before they would just follow you infinitely. Now there's a specific attack area. Another thing to show very, very quickly is that we actually have a new status effect, so debuffs that can be applied. So if you're attacked by a fire attack, or when you're in a fire zone, or if you go into things like the lava, you're actually going to get a new status effect. And each specific dungeon type, so there's 3, has a unique type of effect to it, to some of the monsters. So some of the Trapper, for example, is going to cause a specific effect that's associated with that dungeon. The 3 effects that are actually available to you is, like I mentioned then, a burn effect, which is applied from the fire, the volcanic dungeon, which is right here, burning damage. The next one is fatigue damage, which is happens in the ruins dungeon, and then we have poison, which happens in the plant, the lush dungeon. And these are going to have very different effects, so it's going to be very different. You're going to have a different strategy of how you're going to handle your potions, depending on these stats. And inside the dungeon, of course, these are going to drop, so it can really help you. Essentially, they all act differently. So in the fire, what the fire does is you actually get a heat damage effect. So if I activate this in a minute, you'll actually see what happens. It's only minor, you won't notice it really heavily. I didn't want to add too much more UI when you're in the dungeon. And it's the same with all these, they all have like a minor effect on your bar right here, on your health bar. but what will happen is that it'll be associated with a color and you'll start being affected by it. So for example, poison damage, if I quickly show this off, let's activate poison. What's going to happen is you see our health bar turn purple and we're slowly losing health. It's very, very slow, but it's very long. It lasts an entire minute, and it's very, very gradual, so you got a bit of time to try and get out the way or escape. However, there is a way to cure it. For the poison, you can actually take a health potion and that'll clear the poison. With fatigue, you can take a hunger potion, and for heat, you can get rid of it by taking a hydro potion, a water potion. So yeah, poison gradually kills you over time. It's very slow but long. Fatigue drains your food. So you just saw then with our poison, so let's turn on our fatigue. So fatigue, you see it looks green right here, it's got a green tin, and what's happening is that our regeneration is actually much slower. I'm actually thinking of increasing that even more to be even slower than it is. But essentially, while this guy's draining, you can actually see how much slower it is until it's non-active. So if we do it again, you can see it's much slower, but also the attacks for your in general, your attacks are much slower as well. So it can be a really annoying issue in the ruins. However, I think it's probably one of the more mild effects. And then finally we have the heat damage. So the heat damage, it turns it orange, it takes a ton of damage from you. However, again, it can be stopped by a water potion, so going to be very important to grab it. But also the heat is actually going to be much shorter, so I believe it's only about 10 seconds as opposed to the poison, which is a minute, but it does a ton of damage in a short amount of time and could be really crucial to get a potion in before you actually die. These effects cannot be reapplied until the effect has ended, so you don't worry about stacking things, don't worry about having too many effects on your, it's only once that it stacks. As you can see that our food and water is about to run out, specifically our water is going to run out. And what's going to happen is one of our new effects is going to occur, which is dehydration, which begins to kill us very quickly. And it's the same thing for food, so starvation also happens, and these are obviously much worse when you've got these poison effects. So if you got these status effects a lot of the time, it's going to drop our food or water down a lot if you continuously have it, and then obviously once you get no food or water, you get starvation and dehydration. These status effects are going to make it so that you got to really think about what potions you're going to bring in, but also, kind of avoiding certain attacks a little bit more rather than just tanking. Another thing is that a lot of attacks now have trails on them just to add a little bit of effect to them. Another thing that I haven't done yet is a dungeon end screen. You just saw that all of our stats got reset. What's supposed to happen is that a screen's going to come up, it'll tell you how much XP you've earned in total, how much gold you have, and it'll also give an effect of how much time you spend in the dungeon, and that way it can get translated to how much gold you can potentially get while you were away. So the next thing I want to talk about is I'm going to have to turn this off and just show it in the actual scene right here. So this is our test area. Let's deactivate this for now. And what I'm going to show now is the new type of area. So I'm calling it an arena because it's now blocked off on all sides as opposed to being open. I think it gives it a bit more of a more daunting effect because it means you know kind of where you can work with. And so if I just activate all these regions that I've set up here just as a demonstration, just to show what I'm talking about, and then we activate our lava, make sure it's shown, you can see that we now have a border around all of the specific islands. It also means you can use the lava as a way of escaping, but again you'll get a status effect and damage, but you can essentially use this as a bit of an advantage. You can't just run away. Also, the fact that the camera was now looking almost directly down, not completely but almost, meant that you didn't really need the cave system around. Essentially underneath here is going to be pure black, so pure void black color material, so it's not going to be anything you'll be able to see or get to. And it's the same thing with the medium as well, so just as a demonstration I've going to show this one as well. So even wider, and we have the regions right here. So if we deactivate that and then activate the medium, you see as an example of what we're looking at. So again, I think it looks pretty cool. I've also flattened these regions a lot better so that you can run around them a lot easier, because before you were getting stuck quite a lot. Now that it's more flat, it looks just a lot better. Also, because it's looking down, it doesn't really make too much difference. And then we can do the same thing with the final one, which is our large, and look at that, which is right here. So I think it looks really cool. I think it's going to be a really cool looking dungeon, and I really like the effect of it. Sorry if this is a bit of a long video, but there was just so much that I did in essentially 2 weeks. So now what I'll be doing is specifically the dungeon screen at the end, and then I'll be kind of wrapping everything up. Any little bits that I've done with need to do with the combat and the weapons and things will be done, but it's only very small. It's mostly going to be moving on now to make sure all the UI is working, making sure everything's working, and then potentially starting to make new levels. Hopefully, that's the big goal potentially for next video, is making new islands, making sure everything's okay, and the dungeon screen, making sure the dungeons are cool. Okay, so this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.